So the NBA revealed the first-time nominees for the class of 2022 Hall of Fame, the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, and Manu Ginobili headlined this list. There are a lot of great others that were mentioned as well that I don't have time to run all the way through. Chauncey Billups was also part of this list, but I wanted to stick on Manu Ginobili for a second because this is a guy who had a 19-year NBA career, played 16 seasons with the Spurs, won a Euro League title, a gold medal with Argentina in 2004, and what was one of the biggest upsets over the United States in Olympic basketball history. Four-time NBA champion, a champion in 2003, 2005, 2007, and 2014, a guy who reached the NBA Finals 5 times, 9 times to the Western Conference Finals, and was a key cog in the Spurs dynasty. Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. That's what formed the Big Three in San Antonio. The Spurs don't win all those championships without Manu Ginobili. The Spurs aren't a dynasty without Manu Ginobili. Now, I know that when he was drafted by the Spurs in 1999, 57th overall pick in that draft, that the Spurs actually won a championship in 1999 with Tim Duncan, with David Robinson. That was only one. Then they had to contend with the Shaq and Kobe Lakers and the Phoenix Suns, and then Kobe and Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom. And through all of that, through all those battles, especially against the San Antonio Spurs, it was Manu Ginobili who was a part and a major part of those teams. And Manu Ginobili, listen, this is a guy who people are going to forget about him, especially today's generation growing up. They didn't watch Manu Ginobili play. He quasi-invented, really popularized the Euro step. You see James Harden executing the Euro step. You see guys executing the Euro step. That was what Manu Ginobili brought from Europe and from Argentina to the NBA. The guy's footwork was impeccable. He was one of the best international basketball players that the NBA has ever seen. He was one of the best winners in NBA history, one of the best left-handed players in NBA history. It's funny because James Harden is kind of the Manu Ginobili 2.0 because he's a more elite scorer and he's also left-handed just like Manu Ginobili was, and he took some of his moves from there. But over the course of his career, he averaged over 13 points per game, 3.5 assists, 3 rebounds. Those numbers ticked up in the finals. His numbers aren't going to do him justice. And this is a guy who over 7 seasons averaged 15-plus points per game. But this was one of the clutchest basketball players in NBA history, especially in the postseason. We remember that first-round matchup in the Western Conference against the Phoenix Suns in 2008, that double overtime game in Game 1 between the Spurs and the Suns. Ginobili hits the game winner. They win 117-115. He blocked James Harden in a postseason matchup against the Rockets, funny enough, to ice a game for the Spurs. We all remember in 2013, Game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals against the Golden State Warriors. Kawhi Leonard inbounds it cross court. Quick catch and shoot. Ginobili doesn't even put the ball down. He catches it from up by his face and knocks it down. This was one of the elite scorers in the game. He didn't always showcase it night in and night out, but he could erupt for 30, 40 points per game. He had great vision. He was an excellent basketball passer. So his ability to facilitate was incredible. IQ was incredible. He could finish tough around the rim. Extremely savvy, changed his speeds, changed his directions in ways where he could just kind of contort his body and get angles off the glass to finish. This was a tremendous, tremendous basketball player. Don't be fooled by the bald spot in the back of his head. This guy was a sneaky athlete who was electric. He was one of the flashiest basketball players on a San Antonio Spurs team that, for the most part, were viewed as pretty bland. And probably what he should be known probably most for is he was one of the most, if not the most selfless basketball player that the NBA has ever seen. Because what Greg Popovich subjected him to, what he was willing to accept, to embrace a role coming off the bench. This was a guy who was a starter talent, and Greg Popovich said to him, because he kind of viewed Ginobili as his guinea pig, hey, I need you to come off the bench, even though you're averaging 15 to 17 points per game, even though you are a starter. I want you to come off the bench. Ginobili said, okay, sure, I'll come off the bench. He closed with the team. He's kind of like that sixth man of the year. He played that kind of role where he played starters minutes, but he just came off the bench. But his willingness to embrace that role, his willingness to say, you know what, for the betterment of the team, it would behoove me to come off the bench. It's in the team's best interest if I come off the bench. He didn't have any qualms about it. He wasn't bitter about it. He embraced it. And that altered that dynasty, that altered the game for years to come, because he paved the way for others to say, hey, you know what? I can still be a valuable contributor to my team. I can still be viewed as a priority, even though I'm not a starter. And that kind of set the tone for guys like Jamal Crawford and Lou Williams now that we see are just elite scorers off the bench that are capable starters. But Ginobili made it cool to come off the bench. He didn't make it an insult. He wasn't the poster child for who you don't want to be. No, he became an ambassador for being a sixth man, for coming off the bench, for his selflessness. And like I said to start, I'm extremely happy for him that he's able to headline this list of first-time nominees of the 2022 Hall of Fame class. He's deserving of it. He was a game-changing player in the NBA. And there is no Spurs dynasty without Manu Ginobili. There is no Spurs dynasty without Manu Ginobili. There just isn't. That's how much of an impact he had on his team. That's how much of an impact he had on the NBA. Congratulations to him.